who butchering American history, butchering basic economics, and quite frankly, butchering the English language. Donald Trump once again is pushing this idea that before we had income taxes, we were wealthy and prosperous and perfect as a nation simply with tariffs. He's doing this while simultaneously sort of backing off tariffs, but saying he's not, and the tariffs are on and the tariffs are off and the stock market's up and it's down. But in the middle of this, Trump keeps going back to this phrase he's used: we were the wealthiest country ever in the tariff-only era. Take a listen to this.
Everybody wants to be a part of what we're doing. They know that they can't get away with it any longer, but they're still going to do fine. And we're going to have a country that you can be proud of, not a laughing stock all over the world for many years. You know, in 1913, they traded to the income tax system. We used to be all tariff, and we had no income tax, and we had the wealthiest country we've ever had proportionately. From about 1870 to 1913, it was all tariffs, and we had more money than anybody. They had committees how to spend the money. They had so much money they didn't know how to spend. Then some brilliant person said, let's go income tax. Let's let the people pay. Now, we're going to be able to substantially lower taxes when this is finished.
So listen, Trump's told this story before. It's really important to understand not just its incoherence, but its illiteracy and also its factual falsity. Trump seems to believe that the U.S. was relatively wealthier before we had an income tax because we relied only on tariffs. Set aside the complete mangling of the English language that we heard there. Unpack the nonsense. The 1870 to 1913 era that Trump romanticizes was a time of extraordinary wealth inequality, violent labor crackdowns, and zero social safety net. Sure, the country was growing, but mostly for the robber baron types. Tariffs were regressive. They hurt working class Americans by raising the price of everyday goods, and they spared the rich from contributing to government revenue more in proportion to their ability to do so. The 16th Amendment was passed in 1913, and it allowed the federal government to start collecting income taxes at a federal level. This was a progressive reform. The idea was shift the burden away from poor consumers and onto the wealthy and corporations. And we've talked about this before. If you make 40 grand a year versus 400 grand a year, and all of a sudden groceries go up 15%, that is much more impactful to the person making 40 grand a year rather than 400. The idea of the income tax was, let's reverse that. Let's move in the direction of unburdening some of those lower earners. So when Donald Trump praises the period, he's not glorifying a period of economic strength. He's glorifying a time when the government funded itself by taxing poor people relatively more for socks and flour and farm tools and letting the tycoons hoard untaxed millions or even more in today's dollars. But the kicker is that Trump isn't even proposing replacing the income tax with tariffs. He's going to give us both. Now, during the campaign, he once said we might be able to get rid of the income tax if we did tariffs. Of course, it's never going to happen. Now he's saying we might be able to reduce taxes by doing the tariffs. Trump is giving us both taxes and tariffs. You're going to be taxed on your paycheck, and you're going to be taxed with an import tax called a tariff every time you buy something partially or totally made abroad, which, especially if you buy MAGA merchandise, is just about everything. So the romanticization of this era is a combination of Trump not understanding what was actually going on at that time, combined with maybe understanding a little bit and how it was disproportionately good for the billionaire robber barons. Okay, Trump also spoke during the same press meeting about putting up a 100-foot American flag.
You said you were going up to the lawn for a flag. What was going on?
We're putting up a beautiful, almost 100-foot tall American flag on this side and another one on the other side, 2 flags, top of the line. And they've needed flagpoles for
really quality poles.
200 years. It was something I've often said, you know, they don't have a flagpole per se. So we're putting one right where you saw us, and we're putting another one on the other side on top of the mounds. It's going to be 2 beautiful poles.
Two beautiful polls. Trump is going to be working on that. This is the political equivalent of waving your arms and yelling, "Look over here," while the house behind you is on fire. Look, we're putting up these two huge poles. They're not flaccid, they're stiff poles, and it's all going to be great. Meanwhile, Americans, 72% believe prices are going to go up because of the tariffs. Housing is unaffordable. Democracy is eroding. And Trump's bragging on the White House lawn about putting up two giant flagpoles, like this is the cornerstone of economic revival. And don't you dare be against it, because then we'll brand you as unpatriotic. This is way bigger than a guy who's wrong on the facts, which he is. There is a deep fraud of Trumpism, railing against the elites while pushing policies that benefit them, saying he's going to help the average American while looking wistfully at a period where we had no income tax, but only tariffs, which was terrible for the poor and middle class. This is the fraud that is Trumpism. And my only hope that I'm holding out for is that when I look at the rally crowds that AOC and Bernie have, and when I see how John Ossoff and others are getting their own crowds and the town halls, then you also see that the polling is turning against Trump. 72% of Americans believe believe prices will go up due to the tariffs. You rarely have 72% of Americans agree about anything. That is a maybe early sign that being a little bit, possibly, slightly cautiously optimistic is realistic rather than naive. That's my hope. And we're going to have to wait and see. Thank you to everyone who put my book, The Echo Machine, back on the New York Times bestseller list for the third time in 4 weeks. I didn't think we'd make it once, and we have now been on there 3 of the 4 weeks since the book has been out. Thank you. Of course, the book is still available. Of course, please remember to review the book online if you've gotten it. And I look forward to telling you a little more about the future of me and books. That'll be upcoming at some point. So let's take a very quick break. We've got a great program for you today.